Good morning and welcome back to the plot. Today we're starting our compost trial. So this is our brassica cage and we've divided it up into 4 sections. So we've got some shop bought compost here. In that one over there we've also got some different shop bought compost. This bit over here we've got our locally sourced compost, and in this one we've got the locally sourced compost with some coir from the bags we got the other day. Mixed in with that. If you want to see my trip off to get the coir bags and what a bargain they were, I'll put a link up in the description or on screen. So we've planted these up with some spring onions and then some onion sets and some garlic, and then we'll be filling in the rest of it with some broad beans later on. But without further ado, let's go over to the table, and I took a sample of each one of these compost before I actually planted it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and have a look at each one and see what it looks like, what the contents are like. Then going forward, these beds will have nothing more added to them. We have no extra nutrients or any extra fertilizer or any more compost added on top. And we're going to grow in these throughout the winter and into next spring, where by that time we'll have a cover on it and we'll be using it as a brassica cage. And we're going to see, and then we'll do some weighing in and some crop inspection to see which one of these composts has actually performed the best, and in terms of nutrients and stuff like that, which ones have got the most nutrients in them and managed to hold on to them throughout the winter period to actually feed those plants in spring. So let's nip over to the table and have a look at the different composts. So what we're going to be doing is going to be using this fine sieve. It's a sieve I use for getting pot and compost, and we've got a pot of each of the 3 composts here. So we're going to do the sniff test, sieve some out and see what's fine and what the chaff is, and give my overall opinion of each one. So let's start with this one here. So took that out into that. So this is, I have to say that we put 2 bags of this. This is Wix's own multi-purpose compost. And smelling it, we put 1 bag on. 1 bag smelled very synthetic, and the second bag we put on was very much, it smelled more like something you want to put on your compost heap than actually take off of it. It was very rich, almost manure-y in smell. And actually down in the beds, it's actually still smells quite strong. So let's give this a sieve. Let's give that a sieve through. Give it a good old sieve. That's probably good enough. And let's have a look. Put that stuff on that side, that on the other. So what we've got, this part of the compost is quite thin. It's got quite a few little bits in it, but it's nice and fluffy and stuff like that. This side, so you can see in terms of comparison, it's about 2/3 to 1/3. So in here is the chaffy bits. So not really a great deal of debris in there. It might just be the selection that we got. Quite a lot of rooty bits, and some of this stuff here, I don't know if you can see that, it's quite fibrous. It's almost like string. So quite a lot of few sticks in there that are quite soft, but some of this stuff is quite tough. I mean, it's almost impossible to break. So look at this. I mean, I'd use that as string rather than compost, but I'm not sure it is string. It's just very fibrous. But that's compost 1, and that's Wix's, and that's in the first bed. So let's empty that one out. Got the tray, and on to the next one. This one looks, as you say, it's a lot grayer in consistency, and it's got a lot more twiggy bits in it. Now, this one Again, came out of a compost bag. It's Westland's multi-purpose compost. Coming out of the bag, very, very synthetic-y, I don't know, almost like a piney type sort of smell about it. Not particularly satisfying, I have to say. Certainly didn't give the smell that you get from certainly didn't get the smell that you get from your own compost. So let's give that a good rattle. Make sure that's thing. Let's move that over. So again, you can see the grey sort of bits in there, and let's have a look at what's left. So this one, as you can see, this is what we've got here, and that's probably about a 50-50 split. I mean, this is quite fibrous. Again, it's got lots of those sort of almost stringy bits of wood in there, and that's sort of endemic of when we were planting it and planting up the beds, that this stuff is really light and fluffy, and it's because of this massive fibrous stuff in there. Now that's not to say it's a bad thing. We will find out over time whether that's good or not, but certainly whole load more fibre. As you can see, there's whole load more in there fibre. That's almost like a 50-50 split, so we shall see how that goes. And there's also quite a few larger chunks of wood in there as well, so to see how that goes. Okay, now the final lot. So this is our locally sourced stuff, and this is a sort of soil and compost mix that gets supplied. So just have a few. So this is a little bit damper because it's come out of a dumpy bag that was there, but give it a fair trial. So let's give it a good old shake round, and let's have a look. Let's push that over there. As you can see, it's a bit more soily and composty. So let's have a look. So this is the fine stuff, and it is, in terms of smell, it smells like you want it to smell, really. You know, it smells nice and fresh. These are the larger bits. There's a few large bits of wood in there and stuff, and some of this is the sort of, it's a few bits of clay soil in there, because as I say, it is a sort of soil and compost mix. So these are sort of some of the larger bits, but well, they're all just clagged together a bit, so they'll be in there. They'll be there. So again, that's probably about probably somewhere in between the two. So not quite a 50-50, it's probably, but not quite as good as the Wix's in terms of actually there. It's a lot more harder stuff here. Now, what I've found with this is that it is a brilliant growing medium. We've used it in the polytunnel, and if you've seen the polytunnel beds, you'll know how good that's looking in there. However, what I have found is that it's not thingy. This it clags together and then it breaks up quite the thing if you squeeze it there, but then it will just fall apart again. But it does get, as you can see from my hands, it does get quite wet at the moment with all the rain we've been having, which is why we're doing the multiple trial. So we put some coir in with this, and we're going to see whether that coir will just give it a bit more aeration, soak up a bit more of that moisture. Certainly when trying to plant out into it, it was a lot better and a lot less muddy trying to plant out into the stuff with this and the coir. Mr. Spider there, he obviously likes it. So that's the 3 composts. That's the bed planted up. So that's the 3 composts that we're working with. And as I say, the soil one, the soil and compost mix one, we've also mixed with coir. So we've actually got 4 beds to be working with. So over the coming weeks and months and into next year, we'll be maintaining those for as they are, and we're going to be monitoring what the growth is like, what the nutrient retention is like, and also in terms of the moisture level and general workability, and how that's going. So if you want to see that in the future episodes, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and you'll get notified when we do that. But for now, cheerio.